Guys, it's me, Shaw360, and I'm here to do the review for episodes 7 and 8 of Descendants of the Sun. These last two episodes really didn't have a lot to do with moving the plot forward, but it did have a lot to do with character development, and so I'm going to talk about stuff kind of willy-nilly. I would go in like absolute logical order. The thing is, though, I don't really think that it matters all that much because this was really about watching people and how they react to significant amounts of pressure and how a search and rescue effort like this changes everybody involved. And I think the character that probably changed the most from all of this is Onu's character. So Onu's character, Chihoon, I think it's Chihoon, yeah. He changes a lot because of this whole search and rescue. The main thing that I think it did is I think that it kind of shook him up because I think it challenged a lot of the ideas he had, not just about, the world, but who he is as a person. I think it really challenged him to reevaluate, what kind of guy am I? And in order to understand why it would shake him up so bad, we kind of have to think about who he was before he arrived in Urk. So before Onu's character, Dr. Onu, arrived in Urk, he was the son of an extremely wealthy family. Like, so wealthy that the hospital that he works at was built on the land that belonged to his family. Like, he's that rich. He probably became a doctor because he'd watched doctors on TV and it looked cool, so he just did it. And he came to Urk not because, he was needing to be able to put this on his resume so he can get a better job, but because he just wanted to do something fun before he became a dad. Like he's almost childlike before he comes to this place. And as a doctor, he'd never lost a patient before either, because he probably never worked on anybody who was in any kind of life-threatening scenario. That doesn't mean he was a bad doctor. I don't want it to come across as that. I just want to say that, maybe he didn't have that experience because that wasn't the kind of patient audience, whatever, that he normally dealt with. But anyway, he shows up at the search and rescue site and he has that big breakdown in episode 6. Well, we're in episode 7 and 8 and he goes inside of the power plant to help with the recovery team. And he makes the mistake of kind of walking away from the rest of the team because, this is an adventure. I'm going to rescue some people. And he comes across a guy asking for help, and we're going to call this guy Lazy Bones because he actually has a pretty big part in the series, I believe. He has a name, I just didn't write it down. So Lazy Bones, he comes across Lazy Bones, and Onu's kind of like on one floor, Lazy Bones is on the other. They're separated by a piece of glass. All of a sudden, there's an aftershock, and it shatters this glass, and it makes it to where Onu could possibly reach down and grab this guy from where he's at in the rubble. And I have to give credit to the set designers. When I was watching this scene and several of the scenes that took place inside the destroyed power plant, it like triggered all of the claustrophobia tics that I have. Like, it looked tight and cramped and hot and like there was no air and dangerous. Like, you couldn't really move well in it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this just looks like a fucking nightmare to deal with. So, I mean, it couldn't be me. It could not be me. But anyway, Onu's trying to reach down to grab Lazy Bones out of the pit that he finds him in. The problem is there's like rebar in the way and there's broken stuff in the way and it's super dangerous, and there's been this aftershock. So not only has the glass broken, but pieces of like concrete and rubble are coming down around their heads. So Onu, after feeling like something fall on him, he realizes more of this concrete is coming down. He gets out of the way. It scares him because it comes so close to actually like hitting Onu over the head and getting him. And as he's running away, he's shouting, I can't, I can't, I can't. And he comes out of the wreckage and he is just shell-shocked. He's shaking, he's kind of injured. He can't hear anything because his eardrums have been blown. And one of the soldiers goes up to him and is like, what's going on? And he tells him, hey, there's a guy still in there. But that whole experience kind of creates a sort of PTSD for Onu. First of all, it does one thing. It makes him wonder, like, what kind of man am I that I ran away from this person who was in need, that I couldn't pull him out, and that I was such a coward that I ran out of here and I didn't go back to get him. And then later on, when Lazy Bones is rescued, Onu's at the hospital and he's scared. He's scared to come across this guy because he doesn't want to be confronted with his cowardice. But of course, because this is Dramaland, he is confronted by the guy and he's like, what kind of doctor leaves his patient behind? And it shakes Onu because in his mind, he is thinking, like, what kind of doctor leaves his patient behind? And Dr. Kong tries to tell Onu, don't take it to heart. If you hadn't got out of there, then they wouldn't have known he was in there needing to be rescued. And also, the thing that isn't said is that if you hadn't have gone out of there, chances are you would have been killed during the aftershock trying to get this guy out, and nobody would have been helped. But, hindsight is 20/20. But you can tell that afterwards, Onu was like, well, not only what kind of doctor am I, but what kind of person am I? What kind of man am I that, I couldn't pull this thing off? And when they're finally back in contact with the outside world, once the phone towers have been restored, the mother of his child is calling him because she's been worried sick about him. She's big pregnant, days away from delivering, and, she doesn't know if Onu is dead or alive. He won't answer her calls. When we leave episode 8, he won't answer her calls. And I'm worried about Onu's character because I'm worried about, as we go forward in the story, will he start making decisions based on him trying to redeem himself from his cowardly acts? Or will he make decisions based on not having confidence in himself to being able to perform under high pressure situations? So these are the things I'm concerned about with Onu's character. So, I was glad to see this stuff happen in the show, but at the same time, like I said, I'm really worried about Onu's character and what's going to happen with him and what this is going to cause him to do, how it's going to cause him to react in the future. But there was one really sweet moment with Dr. Onu where he was rescuing a lady from the flower plant site, and he was going to give her an anesthetic, and she slapped the anesthetic out of his hand because she was pregnant and she didn't want to kill her baby. And it was really sweet how he gave her the headphones for his cell phone so she could listen to classical music to try to put her at ease because it helps the baby to relax. And also because it was really cool because it's something I don't think a lot of shows actually show. And I don't know why, but, whenever there's like a natural disaster or something, they always show like basic triaging and, giving people general methods of medical treatment. But this show had 2 instances where general methods of medical treatment weren't exactly the best option for the patient involved. With this lady, the anesthetic wasn't the best option available because she is pregnant. With Lazy Bones, they gave him some medicine to help with the pain, and he had an allergic reaction to the medicine. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people think about, is that when you're in these different areas, you encounter different people with different medical histories, and not everything that you think would work on a normal, healthy person is going to work on this person because they may have a particular medical quirk. Another thing that they didn't show in the show, but is another thing that I would think is a consideration in a foreign country, is foreign country moral rules. Because let's say you're in a country where women are not allowed to show their bodies to any man outside of their family, and you're a doctor and you need to give aid. You might have a woman who won't allow you to work on her because she can't allow you to undress her because of, her religious background. Or you have somebody who maybe has a belief system like Jehovah's Witness where they won't accept blood transfusions, so you can't give them a blood transfusion to help save their life. So all these things are things to consider that a lot of times you don't see on a show when they're in there, rescuing and reviving folks. Complications arise. There was a big thing about the fact that, at the site, they had run out of medical vehicles. There wasn't room in the Medicube to do surgery, so they had to do surgeries out in the open. They were running out of blood to give blood transfusions to people and having to do blood testing out there on site. So these are all things that I don't think you get a lot when they're showing these like disaster movies and disaster TV shows, but this is totally a part of that. When you're doing impromptu medical services and you're not prepared for the scope of the emergency you're needing to treat, you have to kind of make do. Their equipment was breaking down. They had to manually sterilize their equipment. They didn't have x-ray machines. They're kind of having to wing it in a lot of times. And I thought that was really cool that the producers decided to throw in those elements to just add to the reality of the situation. Other characters that I was really interested in seeing, the old nurse and the old doctor, who are kind of playing cat and mouse in this kind of love relationship. I mean, obviously he's got a thing for her, and she just seems like she can't be bothered. But I love her. I love her spunk. I love how she's like, if you really were interested in having a family, you could have had one 20 years ago. And it's like, well, why don't you have a family? Shut up. The little interaction they had where he's like, this is the code to my computer. I have some photos on there that I need you to erase if anything ever happens to me. And she assumes he has like child porn on his computer, which I know he didn't, because otherwise, ew. But yeah, I love their little interactions. But probably my favorite interaction for her was when Chief Jin came into the medical cube and was like trying to commandeer some kind of nurse because he's a VIP and he is suffering from low blood sugar and he could use some glucose and some vitamins. Honey, buddy, I'm very tired. And she was like, okay, hold on just a minute. Is there anybody who could tell this jerk that we are working on like real patients who have real emergencies and he needs to get his ass up, get the fuck out of here and quit wasting my damn time behind some vitamins? And he jumps up and is like, what's your name? And she's like, my name is Jen. What's your name? And he's like, how dare you talk to me like that? She's just like, well, you're the one who started it. I love that scene so much. I love that scene so much. And it's one of those little touches, but it matters a lot in like the grand scheme of things. Because when you have somebody who's willing to stand up to a VIP like that, you have somebody who keeps a calm head and has their priorities straight. And that's the kind of nurse that I want. But yeah, I love that. I like that Nurse Cho is starting to grow up a bit. Nurse Cho is like one of the most ineffectual, like, Butterfingers type of nurses in the world. However, I feel like she's going to grow up in the course of this as well. She's going to start kind of getting her head in the game, quit losing patients, quit losing supplies, quit losing her place, because she just seems like she's lost. And I'm like, how did she become a nurse? But yeah, it seems like she's starting to kind of come up too. And I think she's going to take the lead from our older nurse, Stubborn, and kind of grow up a little bit. And I think it's going to be awesome. Now on to our main characters and their character development. With our main characters, I was so glad to see Wolf kind of let his guard down around Lieutenant Yoon, because theirs is probably right now my favorite relationship outside of the old doctor and the old nurse. And the reason why I love their relationship is because Wolf is one of those people that he doesn't open up easily. And I imagine the reason why he doesn't open up easily is because of his background. I mean, he used to be a street thug. And when you're on the streets and you're doing illicit things, part of what helps you to survive is by not being the kind of person that can be easily read, being able to hide your hand until things go down. And so, as both a street thug and a soldier, being overly emotional is just not something he can be. But he also is a man that's really kind of, whose life is really dictated by codes of honor. And because of that, he's not ever going to be disrespectful to Lieutenant Yoon and be like, get the hell away from me, bitch, I don't like you no more. He's not going to ever do that. But at the same time, he has a hard time, like, completely bringing down that wall. And it was such a precious moment to me when Lieutenant Yoon went up to Wolf and said, were you worried about me when you were in Korea and you heard about the earthquake? Because if you're worried about me, I can't tell from the way you're acting right now. And that just made the floodgates open. He's like, of course I was worried about you. I love you, girl. And it just wrapped himself around her like he wanted to be her human shield. And it was so precious and powerful and wonderful and just like right where I needed him to be. Now, granted, he kind of took a few steps back later when she tried to approach him in the clubhouse or commander's house, whatever they call that area. And I don't know if he backed away from her because he's back to being awkward around her, or if it's because he was mad because when she came in the room, she called Big Boss future husband, even though they were joking, but still. But yeah, I just love that moment because number one, it shows how much she understands him and kind of she knows what button to press to get him to open up, which shows a lot of effort on her part because I imagine he's not an easy guy to get to know. But I also love the fact that, he finally did let his guard down, and I'm sure him being able to embrace her and to feel her was something he's been wanting to do from the moment he heard about the earthquake. Something he's been wanting to do probably forever. Like, he just really wanted to be with her. He really cares about her, and it was really lovely. I think I enjoyed the hug more than I would if they had shared a big kiss, because I felt like it was like a full body contact that they were having, and it's something that he really needed to do. He needed to embrace her with everything. Another relationship that had a little progress here, even though not the kind of progress that any of you probably really care about. The relationship with Big Boss and Wolf. I just love seeing those two together. I love seeing more of their bromance unfold. Probably the biggest part of their bromance for me was when Wolf was freaking out when Big Boss was not responding to the radio. So Big Boss and Wolf had gone in to save Lazy Bones after Dr. Onu had alerted them that Lazy Bones was trapped inside of the rubble, and I think he was like the last person they needed to rescue. And they go in there to rescue him. Wolf is first, and Big Boss says, go back and get another pump so we can widen the space and I can pull this kid out of here. Well, as Wolf had gone out to get ready to do that, Chief Jin, world-class asshole extraordinaire, gets in the excavator and starts digging at the rubble while people are inside. And they have to literally cold cock him to get him out of this excavator and to not get him to bury these people alive. And of course, Wolf is like, the fuck? Who's doing that? Get him right now. I mean, he is hot and he's like, Big Boss, respond, Big Boss. And of course, he's doing everything he can to get to his friend because no, I'm not fixing to let you die here in some foreign country. God knows where. It's not happening. I'm fixing to get you. And he goes and he gets him, and they're carrying Big Boss out on a stretcher, and he's busy trying to flirt with Dr. Kong. But Chief Jin shows up and is, because they arrested him, or I guess detained him after they got him off the excavator. And he's just, the fuck, I need to get to my documents, and, you guys are holding me back, and what's the big damn deal? Wolf becomes unhinged because he just got his superior, his friend, out of this search and rescue effort on a stretcher. He's been injured because of you getting on this fucking machine. You could have killed him. You could have buried him alive, and you have the nerve to come in here and go off about how you can't get to your documents. When he punched Chief Jin, these are the moments that we watch dramas for. It was just extremely gratifying. It was extremely comforting. And it was more confirmation that, the Big Boss Wolf relationship is the OTP of the series. Big Wolf for life. That's what it is. That's their couple name, Big Wolf. But yeah, that was really great. And then the last relationship that had some development, which I really enjoyed seeing, was the relationship between Dr. Kong and Big Boss. I think that with Big Boss, we understood why Dr. Kong didn't really want to get involved with Big Boss in that way because, he leads a dangerous life. What he does is not easy, and it takes a special kind of person to be willing to risk their life for folks who are really strangers. Because, half the people that they're rescuing, defending, they don't know them. They don't know them at all, but they're willing to put their lives on the line because they believe in the need for there to be soldiers in this world. And even though that need is strong, it doesn't mean that it's easy for the average civilian to understand or accept. And so, she's kind of I don't really know if I am mature enough to be in a relationship with somebody who I'd be scared of dying all the time. And I think she got a taste of that worry and that fear that she'd only imagined when the rubble collapsed and Big Boss was inside and it was radio silence. And you could tell that she cared because when Lieutenant Yoon was looking at her while she was tying her shoes, she's like, girl, what are you doing down there? She's like, I'm getting ready to run. because she already had in her mind, the minute you guys can lift the rubble to go in there to find him, I will be right behind you to go rescue my man. Like, I loved it. I loved it. And then also, Dr. Kong, seeing her at the rescue site. It was really cool because I think a lot of us were like, why does Big Boss keep chasing after Dr. Kong? Yeah, she's hot and she's a doctor and she's talented, but I mean, she's been blowing you off, buddy. What's the big attraction? But then you see her in the midst of this effort and she is calm, level-headed, supportive. Like, she's the perfect leader, and it comes from inside of her. It's not about being a doctor for the money. It's about, her genuinely having the heart of a caregiver, for her genuinely having the heart of a doctor, and doing what it takes to try to save the most people, to bring the most good into a situation, and try to rescue people from their health crises and try to get them back to whole as much as she possibly can. And she's working tirelessly. Like, she's working just as hard as Big Boss, and she's actually been working on site longer than he has. But yeah, I thought it was wonderful to be able to see that aspect of her, to get why it was that, he feels so strong about her, because she's that sterling of a person. She's like the female version of him practically, and that's the reason why they're attracted to each other. They're like magnets because they come from kind of the same place inside. I loved the confession that he made to her, and I loved it because it wasn't a high pressure confession. It was just more like, I need to let you know, in case you're wondering, I still feel a way about you. And of course, she let him know, I'm not ready to make that leap. Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it, but I'm not ready to make that leap. But she didn't mock his feelings or make him think that, he was wrong for feeling emotional about her, for caring about her. She just mainly said, I'm just not ready to try to commit to you, but that there are feelings there. And so I appreciated that their relationship grew in that respect. I appreciated kind of the mama bear in Dr. Kong coming out, because when Big Boss got hurt and the commander over him was like, send him to my tent, she's like, no, he is a patient. He has been hurt. We just pulled him out from under a rock. You can tell the commander to come here. I was like, yes, that's right. Protect your man. I mean, and she's still kind of a little bit aloof because she's still a little bit mad at him because he put himself in harm's way. But, the feelings are there. I think the only thing that I didn't like about this episode in terms of Big Boss and Dr. Kong was when they were playing her cell phone, the music on her cell phone, and they played her last little message that she left when she thought she was going to fall off the cliff. Because to me, that was a very personal thing, and he knew that this was being broadcast over the entire camp. So everything she was saying that was a private, personal moment was being heard not just by him, but by her entire staff, who of course understand the language, being heard by practical strangers out there. And it's a moment of extreme vulnerability for her because she thought she was going to die. So I kind of was looking at Big Boss cross-eyed when he was still letting it play, even though this was obviously something that was not meant for anybody else to hear but her mother, even if it was kind of a little bit of a romantic declaration. I just thought that was kind of that was the only thing I was kind of about when it came to those two. Some other things I was kind of about the episode in general. I did like the fact that they showed that the August gang is not playing about their fucking diamonds. Even if it is an earthquake, I still want my stuff, bitch. I thought that was really cool. But I didn't like the fact that they showed the soldiers working at the power plant, but they didn't really show or mention them working anywhere else in the community, which didn't make a lot of sense to me because obviously the community was affected by this just as much as the power plant. They showed the lady from the bar in town coming to the campsite to drop off food, and she's like, there's more where that came from. But I mean, there were probably food issues and buildings that fell apart in town, and they didn't make any mention of soldiers going into town to do any rescue efforts there either. And I understand part of the reason why they probably focused their efforts at the power plant is because the power plant probably had the largest concentration of Korean citizens in that country, and it does help them in a rescue effort to be able to speak the same language as the patients they are working on. However, I just thought that it was weird that they didn't mention that they're going to be out there helping with the rescue efforts for everybody else in that community, because obviously they were there doing peacekeeping activities. So it's not like they're just there for the power plant. They're there doing other stuff as well. The other thing that kind of bothered me a little bit was the fact that the area that they were working on wasn't sealed off. The fact that Chief Jin kept going back and forth to this area when really it should have been restricted and off limits for outsiders. The news team showed up and they were going back and forth and all over the place. And I'm like, the fuck? Why are they here and allowed to just pull up to the scene? I'm surprised there weren't more people wearing hard hats outside of the disaster zone, because with especially aftershocks still happening left and right, it seems like you never know if an aftershock could cause one of these large structures to move, and maybe rubble could go somewhere they didn't anticipate it to go. But these are nitpicky things. One thing that I can say that I really, really liked about this, though, I loved the English. They worked really hard to make sure that people who were supposed to speak English spoke English well. They did a really good job of trying hard to work with the Korean actors to speak English well. Onu's English was just beautiful to listen to. Like, he has a lovely speaking voice in English. But that was a thing that I really liked. And then just to end on an overall positive note, I just think that the fact that they built this set and they used this set so well for like 3 full episodes makes me feel really good about this production, because this whole thing was like pre-filmed. They're not going to be going back and doing any changes because they filmed it all in Greece. So, that's just not even an option at this point probably. But I feel like rather than go on location just to be like, oh, we're somewhere different, they really did utilize a lot of this other location to tell the story. And I think that's something that's really important, and it's something that makes me happy, because there have been times where dramas have gone like to the United States and it really didn't do anything to help with the storyline. It was just like, see some pretty shit and then let's go back to Korea. Whereas this time I feel like they really did use the location to tell the story. And you see all these different kinds of people in this story, so you get the idea that you are in a foreign place, and that made me happy. I really, really like that, and I'm really, really enjoying this show, and I hope you guys are too, and I hope you enjoyed this review, because it was almost a half an hour long. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Oh, shouts out to Olivia Wonka, because me talking about the townsfolk had everything to do with her comment she left on the last review. So there you go, girl. Talk to you later. Bye.